You remember that period of time when you were never allowed to criticize someone who the public or the globe had declared to be a saint. But now that speech is freely allowed and knowledge is readily available online, we are looking back at some of these once holy figures. They were even revered, grieved over, thought of, and treated as though they were gods among them. They were just people. And, let me say this, not very nice people in the background. When the layers of the onion are peeled away, you wonder, was this person actually a good person? Gandhi was a multifaceted, paradoxical man full of contradictions. In addition to being a sexist, he had strong opinions toward black people and other inferior races. Gandhi, who practiced activist law in South Africa for 21 years, is arguably the most well-known Indian and a leading proponent of non-violence throughout history. He was a villain as well as a hero. While he produced a large deal of excellent work, it is possible for two statements to be true at the same time in philosophy. He was a dreadful husband to his wife, and there was controversy around some of his excesses with his very young nieces. To give you an idea of how Gandhi grew to be this legendary person, we must begin at the beginning, his early years. On October 2nd, 1869, Monsieur Gandhi was born in the Gujarati seaside town of Porbandar. With an inquisitive nature from birth, young Mohandas Gandhi left a profound impression on everyone in his vicinity. As the chief minister of Porbandar, Karamchand Gandhi, the father of Mahatma Gandhi, held a position of influence. Putlibai, his mother, was the model of a devout mother. She was a devout follower of Vaishnavism and had a strong affinity for the Jain traditions, which placed a strong emphasis on spiritual discipline and non-violence. She was renowned for her unwavering willpower when embarking on arduous fasts and for never skipping her daily prayers. The young Gandhi was deeply impacted by this pious way of living, which sowed the seeds of discipline and spirituality that would eventually shape his life's work. Gandhi's family practiced an eclectic blend of Jain and Hinduism and was a melting pot of religious influences. Gandhi's perspective was shaped from an early age by the complex tapestry of values and ideas he was able to draw from his eclectic religious heritage. Gandhi's younger sister claimed that he was as fidgety as Mercury. Either he was playing with unbridled energy or he was curiously exploring the environment around him. Twisting dog ears was one of his more scandalous childhood pleasures. The story depicts a mischievous lad who may not have known the teachings of non-violence he would later preach. In addition to his fun pranks, Gandhi was quiet and reserved, which helped him become an astute observer of the outside world. His father had relocated to the vibrant town of Rajkot to take a position as an advisor to the ruler of the area, where he spent his early years. Rajkot was a lively place with lots of cross-cultural interactions, which deepened his understanding even more. Gandhi attended Alfred High School in Rajkot after starting his schooling at a nearby school in Porbandar. He was regarded as an average student who did not excel academically, but shown a strong interest in moral and ethical issues. His insatiable curiosity was sparked not just by textbooks, but also by philosophical questions that were pressing him. His sincerity and timeliness were well known. Though his calm manner frequently concealed his inner anguish and questions about identity, truth, and the world around him, young Gandhi was well respected by both his peers and teachers. Gandhi was a bit of a loner, preferring to spend his time contemplating life's greater implications despite having companions. He was not without interest, though. He loved to read, and novels about morality and heroic characters that appealed to his developing sense of fairness and truth were especially appealing to him. Mahatma Gandhi's life is frequently portrayed as one of sacrifice and saintliness, but his early marriage to Kasturba Kapadia provides insight into a less talked-about side of his life. Though their union was characterized by society conventions and youthful purity, it eventually blossomed into a complicated love that would withstand emotional and traditional storms. The 14-year-old Kasturba and the 13-year-old Gandhi were set up for marriage in May 1883. In their area, it was usual for families to believe that early child-rearing ensures social and economic stability. Gandhi's brother and cousin were also married on the same day. Thus, it was a lavish celebration of their union. Gandhi saw marriage at that young age as a celebration of sweets, new clothes, and games with family members, harmless pleasures untarnished by the burden of marriage responsibilities. As was customary, young Gandhi was left to struggle with emotions he hardly comprehended, while Kasturba spent a great deal of time at her parents' house. Later on, he apologized for the passionate cravings that had overcome him and said that thoughts of his future wife had troubled him even at school. As Gandhi recalled moments of jealousy when Kasturba would visit the temple with her friends, his disclosures exposed a possessive character. The underlying, unfiltered emotions of a teenage husband were exposed by these sentiments of desire and possessiveness. They had experienced heartache in the early years of their marriage. Gandhi's father died in late 1885, leaving a vacuum in the family. Tragic events occurred again soon after, as Gandhi's first child passed away a few days after delivery. Gandhi experienced severe mental suffering as a result of these setbacks. Notwithstanding these difficulties, the couple continued to conceive 4 more boys, which deepened Gandhi and Kasturba's relationship as they experienced the highs and lows of life together. Gandhi, however, came under fire from many quarters for turning down Western medical treatment for his dying wife. He got sick after she passed away and asked for Western medicine, which ultimately saved his life. Gandhi forbade his spouse from receiving shots of penicillin. He later had malaria and required quinine. He started taking the medication he needed to survive after 3 weeks. Gandhi's wife passed away because he refused to have alien medicine injected into her body. However, Gandhi contracted malaria shortly after and, bending from the norm that applied to his wife, consented to Western medication being used to save his life. Additionally, he consented to have an appendectomy, an alien surgery, performed on him by British physicians. That's odd, then. In 1914, he also wrote a letter to his friend Kallenbach, in which he expressed his overwhelming wish to die. If anybody should have died, it was Mrs. Gandhi. It does, however, get worse. Gandhi describes how he lost his fury and pulled his wife out of the house by her wrist in his autobiography. He clarifies that he thought of his wife as an object at the time. The Guardian claims that Gandhi detested intimacy in all situations, save those involving reproduction, and hated his own sensual urges. All these historical characters that we take for granted seem to have had fairly awful backstories. He preached that symptoms, including constipation, resulted from an inability to restrain sexual desires. He thought that sensuous freedom would lead to the downfall of the Indian people and that closeness was bad for one's health. Without talking to his spouse, he unilaterally decided to abstain from sexual activity. Imagine being married to someone who decides they will never again have a sexual relationship without first talking to you. The way he saw the feminine body was likewise distorted. According to Rita Banerjee's account in her book Sex and Power, he thought that a woman's menstrual cycle was an indication of how her libido had distorted her soul. Woe. When Gandhi arrived in South Africa, he found 2 of his female disciples being harassed by a young man. In response, Gandhi chopped the girl's hair himself to make sure the sinner's eyes were sanitized. Gandhi wrote about the incident with pride, encouraging all Indian women to take responsibility for any attacks they may have received. In India, this kind of heritage is still there today. After a wave of sexual harassment complaints surfaced in the summer of 2009, universities in North India decided that women should not be allowed to wear jeans because the Western-style clothing was too provocative for men to wear on campus. Gandhi felt that women of Indian descent who were exploited without consent lost their humanity. He maintained that dads might be justified in murdering their daughters if they had experienced sexual assault. It was such a humiliation to him that he said dads are right if they choose to, take their daughters out of here forever, because it would betray the respect of the family and community if a woman was touched without her consent. Of course, when his life was coming to an end, he began to soften his beliefs, but the harm had already been done. Gandhi also fought against birth control, calling Indian women who used it garden tools, if you get what I mean. To test his chastity, he started having sex with young women who were nude, even his own great niece. He used to have his nieces with him all the time, everywhere. Little girls, you'll notice the same faces with him frequently as we watch this video. Those were his nieces, and he would force them to sleep with him against their will when they were too young and nude in order to test himself. His supporters were shocked and outraged by the habit. This was not to everyone's liking. Many were understandably disturbed by it. However, at that point, he had become such a legendary character that many people chose to ignore it. Since he was still married and doing this, God only knows how his wife felt at the time. Gandhi solidified for a new generation the belief that women were nothing more than objects that might either make their male owners proud or ashamed. Gandhi was a brilliant man who understood the enormous potential of non-violent political revolution. But his aggressive views regarding women have resulted in innumerable honor killings and unimaginable suffering. Returning to his spouse, additional letters expressing his precise feelings about her were discovered. My heart was broken by that. That will also shatter your heart. Gandhi started to gaslight her and those around her as she started to realize who the actual Gandhi was. He called her the literal devil and made her think that there was a problem with her. On April 14, 1914, Gandhi complained in this letter to his friend Colin Buck about his wife. Miss Gandhi is much better, but an event happened yesterday which once again proved what I have told you, namely that she has both the devil and the divine in her, in a most concentrated form. She said yesterday, accusing Jackie of tampering with Diva's drawer, which belongs to one of their boys, by asking, "Who has opened Diva's drawer?" She throws flames at Jackie. I mentioned just softly that I had opened it. "Why?" was the menacing question. "To see if I could locate a sheet for you," I replied. "That doesn't contain sheets," was the reply, which implied to me that I hadn't actually opened the drawer and was only lying to protect Jackie. This was too much, so once more I said, in a gentle but stern manner, that her sickness was mostly caused by her sins and that she was sinful in her thoughts. She instantly started to howl. I had killed her by forcing her to leave all the wonderful food. She had become boring to me. I wanted her dead. I was a serpent with a hood. These comments were delivered in a really nasty manner. Despite her illness, I informed her, I could not feel sorry for her transgressions. She got more ferocious the more I said. I maintained total composure. I assured her I was sorry and that I would never sympathize with her again, even to that degree. I have never met a woman as poisonous as she is. She is never able to forgive or forget. She is normal today, but yesterday was one of the most valuable lessons I have ever learned. I'm sure she meant all of the accusations she made against me. She feels the opposite. I have cared for her like a son would care for his mother, but my love hasn't been strong enough or self-centered enough to cause her to change. She is, without a doubt, my finest teacher to date. She helps me understand how empty the world is. She instills in me a greater sense of self-sacrifice, forgiveness, love, and generosity. I think the experience has made me a better, wiser, and more compassionate man. Yes, A man who wants to work with detachment must not get married, if it makes me even sadder. I can't say that she was an especially horrible wife or lady. Conversely, it's unlikely that any other lady could have tolerated her husband's life upheavals as well as she has. Okay, so far she hasn't stopped me and has shown me excellent behavior. However, how is a leopard able to alter its spots? In most cases, an average household would not have experienced the occurrence from yesterday either. My point is that you cannot live for humanity and be attached to a certain woman. They don't go well together. That is the true reason why the devil occasionally works in her. If not, he could have slept right in her, undetected." End quote. Wow, just wow. Comment below your thoughts. Just wow. This letter from Gandhi reveals the mental state of a man who hates his wife because he has other priorities in his life. He is writing to another man, venting out his frustration in a way that would portray him as the victim on moral grounds. Once you hear and digest a letter like this and recall how he just let her die, the picture becomes clear. Close quotation. Just wow. Please share your ideas in the comments section below. Just astounding. Gandhi's letter illustrates the psychological state of a guy who despises his wife and has other priorities in life. He's writing to another man, letting his rage out in a way that would make him look like the morally recalcitrant victim. The picture becomes obvious once you hear and process a letter like this and remember how he just let her die. She called it out while she was still living, and he genuinely wished she died so he could be free to do anything he wanted with his life. "You want me to die?" she whispered. "You wish to separate me from my loved ones and my family." She claimed that even though her health was failing, he would simply uproot his family and go pursue his priorities because, as you'll see over the rest of the story, he wanted her to die. When she said that, he would immediately get mad and start calling her the devil. However, as soon as he had the opportunity, he said, "Oh yeah, don't give her the medication. We object to external objects entering her body." Guys, the narrative does get worse, so let's move on before we get too attached to this. Gandhi's education did suffer as a result of his marriage. Despite missing a year of school, he was able to make up lost time via expedited coursework. At the age of 18, he happily received his high school diploma in November 1887. He then enrolled in Bhavnagar State's Samaldas College, the only university in the area that offered degrees. He dropped out though, perhaps due to the pressure of his family responsibilities and the drastic changes in his personal life, and went back to Porbandar to think about his options. Gandhi's journey from the crowded streets of Bombay to the misty shores of London was an outrageous one. It all started when he left the Bombay college that was the cheapest option available to him. Mavji Dave, a family friend, had a brilliant idea. Gandhi ought to go to London and study law. Gandhi's mother became agitated by this audacious proposal. The idea of his abandoning his family, especially his young bride, was too much for her to handle. Gandhi vowed sternly to abstain from meat, alcohol, and women in order to win over his guarded mother and unconvinced wife. Gandhi's ambition was enthusiastically supported by his brother Laxmus, a lawyer who recognized the potential in Gandhi's desire to pursue a legal career. Reluctantly receiving his mother's approval, the 18-year-old Gandhi set out on his voyage on August 10, 1888. The Mod B community elders welcomed him to Bombay and cautioned him that England was the land of temptation. However, Gandhi disregarded their advice since he had his mother's pledge to uphold. Because he dared to study abroad, he was excommunicated from his caste, which was a heavy price for his defiance. Unfazed, Gandhi left with his brother saying goodbye and sailed for London on September 4th. Gandhi's life in London was a frenzy of cross-cultural encounters and personal development. He took dancing lessons and adopted English habits in an attempt to blend in, despite his pledge. But he was hungry in his native land's boring vegetarian cuisine until he found one of London's rare vegetarian havens. His journey toward vegetarianism brought him to the London Vegetarian Society, where he finally became an executive committee member after being influenced by Henry Salt's writings. Gandhi completed his law education and received his bar admission by June 1891. It was, however, a bittersweet return to India. His family had kept it a secret from him to spare him anguish while he was away, but he was unaware that his dear mother had died while he was in London. Gandhi's attempt to open a legal practice in Bombay, India, was not very successful. His Achilles heel turned out to be his unwillingness to cross-examine witnesses, a crucial ability for any attorney. This misstep signaled the start of a journey that would ultimately propel him beyond the practice of law to become a world leader and symbol of peace. At the age of 23, Gandhi set off to work as a lawyer for Abdullah's cousin in South Africa in April 1893, driven by ambition and youth. He had no idea how much this journey would change his life. Gandhi first experienced the brutal realities of racial discrimination when he arrived in South Africa. When he was instructed to sit on the stagecoach's floor rather than with the European passengers, he experienced unfairness for the first time. Gandhi was assaulted for his disobedience and refusal to obey. He was summarily kicked into a gutter for simply wandering close to a house in another horrifying event. The most well-known incident, however, was when Gandhi, still in possession of a valid ticket, was ejected from a train for refusing to exit the first-class cabin. Gandhi had to make a difficult choice that chilly night on the platform: go back to India or defend his rights. He was permitted to board the train again the next day since he had chosen protest over retreat. Gandhi was even more determined after a Durban magistrate gave him the order to take off his turban, which he vehemently refused to comply with. Indians were allowed to use public walkways, therefore when a policeman pushed Gandhi off a sidewalk, he experienced bias once more. Though he believed himself to be British first and Indian second, these events drove home the fact that he was perceived as an alien. Gandhi was driven to challenge the status of Indians under the British Empire by the discrimination he experienced and witnessed. May 1894 saw the conclusion of the legal case that had brought him to South Africa in the first place. But just as he was about to leave for India, a discriminating proposal from the Natal administration caused him to change his mind. Gandhi made the decision to stay and oppose a bill that would have denied Indians the right to vote, a right that was only meant for Europeans. Even though he was unable to stop the bill from passing, his effort brought attention to the atrocities that Native Americans faced. Gandhi inspired the Indian community to become a powerful political force by working toward the establishment of the Natal Indian Congress in 1894. When a group of white settlers attacked him in Durban in January 1897, his dedication to justice was put to the test once more. He astonishingly decided not to file charges against his assailants, demonstrating his dedication to forgiveness and peace. Gandhi, then 45 years old, came to India in 1915 not as an activist or a lawyer, but rather as a force of nature, prepared to upend the very underpinnings of British power. He pulled up his sleeves as soon as he landed and began organizing peasants, farmers, and urban workers against the two evils of discrimination and high land taxes. It marked the beginning of a drive to reshape the subcontinent. Gandhi led the Indian National Congress by 1921, directing a symphony of national campaigns to combat poverty, advance women's rights, promote interfaith harmony, and overthrow the deeply ingrained caste system. Gandhi's modest, hand-loomed dhoti, which he occasionally wore only to expose his chest, has come to symbolize his style of dressing for some. This was more than just a style statement. It was a strong affinity with the rural poor of India and a visible show of support for the country's essence. But keep in mind that Gandhi was not even an impoverished child. Gandhi adopted a simple lifestyle, fasting for extended periods of time, eating modest meals, and living in a self-sufficient society. These practices were both a powerful tool for political activism and a means of introspection. These days, a lot of people criticize Mother Teresa and Gandhi, believing that they were installed in each country by Western powers or other so-called forces to calm the populace into non-violence and keep them from attaining independence. They contend that by dressing simply, these characters are intended to evoke a sense of humility in the minds of onlookers, who are led to feel, "Oh, what a humble, conscious person." Their possibilities, lifestyle, and level of education, however, are not comparable to those of the average person. Behind the scenes, they get praise from the rich and enjoy benefits, like using young ladies. Please share your ideas in the comments section below. The historic 400-kilometer Dandi Salt March in 1930 is regarded as one of Gandhi's most daring acts of rebellion. He opposed a British salt tax while leading a horde of supporters, elevating a common good into a symbol of resistance. He became the face of anti-colonial nationalism with this act of civil disobedience and the 1942 demand that the British leave India. His convictions put him in jail several times, in South Africa as well as India, demonstrating his determination to make sacrifices in his own life for the sake of others. Gandhi's dream of an independent India was not without its critics, though. The emergence of Muslim nationalism in the early 1940s, which called for a separate homeland, hampered Gandhi's vision of a country with a diverse religious population. The agonizing division of India into Pakistan, which is primarily Muslim, and India, which is home to the Hindu majority, preceded the country's eventual independence in August 1947. Following the exodus, there was a surge in religious violence, especially in Bengal and Punjab. Gandhi refrained from participating in the nation's independence celebrations, preferring to walk among the afflicted masses and use his words and presence to try to stop the bloodshed. His dedication to achieving peace prompted him to go on multiple hunger strikes. The most recent one started in Delhi on January 12, 1948, when he was 78 years old. Both respect and hostility were directed at him because of his unflinching defense of Muslims during this turbulent period. Some Hindus saw him as being unduly lenient towards Pakistan and Indian Muslims. Let's discuss some of his racist beliefs, which may infuriate people. A Gandhi statue was taken down from a Ghanaian university campus. The hashtag #Gandhi must fall is being used by activists there and in Malawi. Because of his early writings, they are furious. When Gandhi was in South Africa in 1903, he wrote that the majority race there ought to be white. In addition, he claimed that black people live like animals, are unruly, and are filthy. In the book, The South African Gandhi, Stretcher-Bearer of Empire, it is written that during his stay in Africa, Gandhi kept the Indian struggle separate from that of Africans and Coloureds, even though the latter were also denied political rights on the basis of colour and could also lay claim to being British subjects. It cannot be avoided. Gandhi harboured prejudices from a young age. Gandhi, according to his biographer Ramachandra Guha, adopted the ideologies of his culture and era when he was younger. In his 20s, he believed that Africans were uncivilized, Indians were about as civilized as Europeans, and Europeans were the most cultured. In an interview with NPR in May at his Bengaluru, India, home, Guha, who was 61 at the time, stated that Gandhi was really just going with the flow. Such were the prevalent beliefs at the time. We are able to forgive him, since at the time, that was the accepted belief system. He wrote to a Johannesburg health official in 1904 demanding that the municipality remove Kafirs, a term that is now derogatory for black South Africans, from the Kafir location, an unhygienic slum where many Africans coexisted with Indians. He added, "I must confess I feel most strongly among the mingling of the Indians and Kafirs." Thus, he disapproved of the mixing of blacks and Indians. In that same year, he stated that the Indian did not drink Kafir beer, nor did he do war dances like the African did. He even objected to war dances and customs from Africa. Gandhi warned that as long as Indians and Africans were being brought together indiscriminately at the hospital, the problem would continue when Durban was struck by plague in 1905. According to Rajmohan Gandhi, Gandhi's grandson and biographer, the younger Gandhi was certainly uninformed and prejudiced about South African blacks at the time he came in South Africa as a 24-year-old briefless lawyer. From his own grandson, this: "The new book's authors don't agree. An adherent of the Aryan Brotherhood was Gandhi. This implied that, in terms of civilization, white people and Indians were superior to African people. He was racist in that sense. He was racist to the point that he actively worked to erase Africans from history or sided with white people in the oppression of Africans. That comes from Ashwin Desai, too. This was done because they were erasing African Americans from history, and as a result, many historical accounts omit important information. Gandhi thought they were at the bottom of the hierarchy. They don't even deserve to be a part of history with their accomplishments, etc. Write them out and find someone more capable to take their place." In South Africa, Gandhi has been resurrected more than a century after he departed Africa. Gandhi did raise universal aspirations for equality and dignity, Desai and Vahed agreed, despite their misgivings about the man of empire. Contrary to popular belief, even the greatest men had flaws, and Gandhi may not have been an exception. Well, I suppose that's true. That was simply the standard. No matter where you lived or what part of the world you were in, black people are still the most despised race for some reason. Black people are simply despised. Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and the rest are not an exception. That being said, it is what it is. Can you then be angry with Gandhi for experiencing what they all did? For you would simply be enraged at everyone, particularly those of our generation. However, it is disturbing to learn that during his trip to India and other places, Martin Luther King wished to sleep in Gandhi's chamber. Really? Were you unaware that he wouldn't even find you attractive? You and your wife slept in his room, and he felt you were beneath him. I'm not sure. Anyhow, thus, as the sun descended on the fatal evening of January 30th, 1948, Mahatma Gandhi, the venerable peace activist, strolled around Birla House's serene lawn with his granddaughters. He was abruptly faced with a shockingly violent conclusion while en route to conduct a prayer service. A passionate supporter of Hindu nationalism named Nathuram Godse materialized from the shadows and fired 3 close-range bullets into Gandhi's chest with terrifying accuracy. The entire globe froze. When news of his passing spread, the country fell into deep sadness. Following this heartbreaking incident, 8 persons were put on trial for their roles in the conspiracy of death. India grieved Gandhi's passing with a depth appropriate for a national sorrow. His 5-mile burial procession served as a monument to his influence. Over 1 million mourners, spanning 5 kilometers, participated in the procession, while countless more people lined the streets to offer their condolences. Indian-owned companies in London shut down, and thousands of people flocked to India House to pay tribute to Gandhi. Gandhi was cremated in line with Hindu custom, and his ashes were distributed for memorial rituals around India to symbolize the country's collective loss. Gandhi was the most well-known proponent of nonviolence, even though he did not create it. He used it as a potent political instrument to oppose British rule. He was acclaimed as the most influential person in modern India, his influence only surpassed by that of the Buddha, and he was the driving force for India's freedom. American historian Stanley W. Pear sufficiently captured Gandhi's monumental impact, describing him as India's greatest revolutionary nationalist leader and a beacon of hope in a tumultuous world. The dramatic end of his life only intensified the spotlight on Gandhi's enduring message of peace, leaving a lasting mark on history. I tried not to be biased, but of course I'm going to have a little bias because it's pretty hard not to have an emotional response to just how he treated women, his grandnieces. With all due respect, can you fathom lying next to this old man who is essentially skin and bones without any clothing on? My gosh, what a mess. You cannot speak without your permission because he is the respected, powerful person in the group. For his poor wife and his granddaughters, the power dynamics are very different. She was really angry with this man, but she never voiced her displeasure to him. Eventually, she had to pass away because he wouldn't even allow her to receive the penicillin. It's challenging to remain neutral. Then erasing black people out of history by labeling them as filthy and placing them at the bottom of the social hierarchy. Like Mother Teresa, he was an agent in service. Everybody has its go-betweens, these virtuous individuals who travel around soothing the populace. That's just the picture I have of him. Did he accomplish much beneficial work? Indeed, he did. Nevertheless, I'm not sure. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the conflict. What are your thoughts on this?